The next thing to really understand is that idea between that overview system versus the subsystem. And I shared a couple of videos in the portal, and I've got quite a few resources I'll link to that will go into specific common things that pop up. But I'd love to get your insight, Brendan. I know you had asked the question in Circle and you said, oh, I'm having trouble understanding how and where to use an overview system versus a subsystem and the difference between the two. And I had shared a couple of videos on that. I don't know if you can unmute yourself and just let us know how you now think about the two and where one might be appropriate versus another.
But it feels like everything that we do should be an overview system, to be honest, because there's just so many moving parts. But I think in the key kind of operational areas of our business, like project management, because there's so many different areas, that I think that would be a good overview system. And then we would be able to categorize the different areas of project management, because within each area, there's a bunch of different systems as well. So I think it's clear. My question would be, like, on the sheets, if I have an overview system, I just want to make sure that there's some value there for whoever's looking at it. Because if I'm pointing from an overview system to a bunch of different systems, it seems, or it feels like maybe they're not getting very much value out of that. And then I start getting into the weeds and everybody else was talking about earlier. So I'm still struggling a little bit with that, but I understand the concept of starting with the overview system and then breaking it down into manageable pieces.
Yes, yeah. I think what I loved about what you said there, and it's one of the slides I'll talk about, it really just comes down to making systems useful. If, as long as you've got that in your brain, you always want to be questioning, why am I documenting this and how is this helpful? Because if you're doing it for documenting sake, then it's not helpful. Sometimes with an overview system, part of is it helpful is understanding whom is it for. So an overview system is great potentially for a more skilled team member who might be managing or overseeing something, and you're saying, here are the key milestones and steps. And then that person doing the management or the overseeing of it may be assigning out tasks underneath that to get it complete. So that subsystem sometimes is for the person they're assigning it to, which might be the detailed how to do a particular step in that larger process, if that makes sense. But definitely trying to understand that, and whenever it gets too overwhelming or too confusing, just come back up to the overview process. That's a great place to start always, because it helps you then prioritize and then figure out which ones are actually worthwhile. And then coming back to the question, what is essential? What is repeatable? What is delegatable? Who's going to be doing this task? To what level of detail are they going to need that documented to complete? There's a range of different things to consider, and I'll touch on a couple of those just in a moment. The best thing I can do, though, rather than going through every single thing on this call, will be to point you to the videos to say, here are the 5-10 videos that handle those specific questions. But when it comes to overview versus subsystem, one thing that I haven't talked about that much that I wanted to mention is this idea of, especially when you're in the extracting, is, are you actually doing it or are you discussing it? Generally, if it's an overview system, you're just discussing it, because the overview system generally is something that happens over a period of time, and it's got milestones and you can't do it in the moment, and it's usually quite a large thing that's going on, so it's not possible to capture it all in that specific moment. Whereas the difference, again, between discussing it and when you discuss it, that's your extraction session, discussing it, recording that, and then converting that into an overview, versus doing it, which is what we'll have a look at today with our hot seat, where we actually do the thing and we record that happening. Just a heads up, that clip was taken from a session in our Systems Champions certification program, which is the world's first and only program for systems champions to help you build a systems culture and develop an AI-first approach and roll it out inside your organization. To find out more, head over to systemology.com/systems champ, and I'll see you in there.